The cold bit deep into her skin that early June morning in 1947. Mary Constance tightened her wool shawl against her body as she guided the buggy down the dirt road, winding through the hills of Fairhaven, deep in the countryside. The waning moon barely lit the path, and the kerosene lantern swung from the buggy's hook, casting dancing shadows against the twisted trees lining the road. The smell of dry earth mixed with the strong scent of horse manure and the sweet aroma of grass dried by the frost. It was nearly 4 in the morning. Mary Constance was returning from town, where she had sold her chickens at the market. 32 birds that yielded just enough to buy kerosene, salt, and a slab of bacon. At 52, a widow for 15 years, she lived alone in a small shanty that stood exactly where the road made a sharp turn before entering the village. A house that looked more like a tomb, the neighbors said. Windows always shut, a yard without flowers, a silence as heavy as a gravestone. The horse trotted wearily when a sound tore through the quiet of the night. A cry. Mary Constance pulled the reins hard. The horse halted, whinnying softly, nostrils blowing steam into the freezing air. She sat motionless on the buggy seat, wide eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Her heart, which for 15 years had beaten too slowly like a broken clock, now hammered against her ribs. The cry came again, sharp, desperate, the cry of a newborn. "It can't be," she murmured to herself, her voice raspy from disuse. "My ears are playing tricks on me." But the crying continued, fainter now, as if losing strength, as if giving up. Mary Constance climbed down from the buggy, legs trembling, and grabbed the lantern. The yellow light flickered as she walked slowly toward the sound. Her feet, clad in worn boots, stepped carefully on the hardened earth. The cold wind carried the smell of dense woods and something else, something organic, of blood and fluids. That was when she saw it. There, thrown on the side of the road like a sack of trash, wrapped in a filthy cloth that had once been white, was a baby. The child cried with its mouth wide open, purple from the cold, tiny, clenched fists shaking violently. It couldn't be more than a few hours old. The umbilical cord was still tied with a piece of dirty string. Mary Constance stood paralyzed. The lantern almost slipped from her hand. For 15 years, she had avoided looking at children. For 15 years, she had built walls around her heart. For 15 years, she had buried the pain of losing her own son, born dead while her husband died of fever in the next room, so deep that she sometimes forgot she was capable of feeling anything at all. But now, looking at that abandoned baby, the fortress she had built began to crack. "Good Lord in heaven," she whispered, kneeling on the cold ground. "What soulless creature does a thing like this?" The baby was a boy. She saw it when she picked him up with a gentleness that surprised her, as if her body remembered gestures her mind had tried to forget. The child was freezing, skin bluish, lips almost purple. He could barely cry anymore, emitting only a weak whimper that broke her heart. Mary Constance opened her shawl and wrapped the baby against her chest, trying to warm him with her own body heat. She could feel the tiny heart beating too fast, desperate, fighting to stay alive. "Hush now, son." The words came out before she could think. "I'm here. I'm right here." They were the first words of tenderness to leave her mouth in 15 years. She ran back to the buggy, the baby pressed tight to her chest, and covered him with extra cloths she kept under the seat. She whipped the horse with an urgency the animal hadn't felt in years. The buggy dashed down the potholed road, bouncing and rattling, while Mary Constance held the baby with one hand and the reins with the other. praying softly for the first time since the day she buried her husband and son in the same grave. "Hold on, child. Just hold on a little longer." The small shanty appeared around the bend. Mary Constance barely waited for the buggy to stop completely before jumping out and running inside. She lit the kitchen lamp, then another in the bedroom. The house that had lived in shadows for 15 years was suddenly illuminated as if for a party. She placed the baby on the kitchen table and began to work with an efficiency she didn't know she still possessed. She lit the wood stove, put water on to heat, grabbed clean cloths she kept in a trunk. The smell of wood smoke filled the kitchen as the flames crackled, casting an orange light that danced on the mud walls. Carefully, she cleaned the baby. She cut the umbilical cord properly, washed the freezing little body with warm water, dried every fold with the delicacy of someone handling something sacred. The boy was undernourished, skin wrinkled over fragile bones, but he was alive. He was crying louder now, and Mary Constance smiled for the first time in so long that her own lips seemed to have forgotten how to make the movement. "You're a fighter, aren't you, son? Thrown on the road and still, you don't give up." She took an old shirt of her dead husband, kept for 15 years in a suitcase she never opened, tore it, and made improvised diapers. She wrapped the baby in a wool blanket and held him in her arms, rocking him slowly as she paced the kitchen. The boy began to calm down, swollen little eyes opening for the first time, trying to focus on the face of the woman who had saved him. Mary Constance looked into those eyes and felt something she thought dead wake up inside her chest. It was still night when violent knocking on the door startled her. "Mrs. Constance! Mrs. Mary Constance!" It was the shrill voice of Martha, the nearest neighbor, who lived 3 houses down. "Are you in there?" Mary Constance hesitated. She looked at the baby in her arms, now sleeping peacefully, and then at the door. She knew that tone. It was the tone of urgent gossip, of fresh scandal. She opened the door just a crack. Martha was there, shawl over her head, beady eyes shining with malicious curiosity. 2 other women stood behind her, Gladys and Etta, the biggest tongues in the village. "Is it true you picked up a child off the road?" Martha practically spat the words, trying to peek over Mary Constance's shoulder. "And if I did?" "Oh, my dear lady," Gladys crossed herself theatrically. "An abandoned child is a cursed child. It's a sign of grave sin. The mother who does such a thing must have her reasons." "Reasons?" Mary Constance felt rage rise like bile. "What reason justifies leaving a newborn to freeze to death on the road?" "You don't understand." Etta stepped closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "A bastard child brings misfortune, and you, forgive me for saying, but you, already a widow, no family, living alone, what will people say? Let people think what they want. But you don't even have milk to give the creature." Martha pointed an accusing finger. "How will you feed it?" "I'll find a way." "Mrs. Constance, with all due respect, you never even raised a child. Your baby will it." "Well, you know." Gladys feigned pity, but her eyes shone cruelly. "How will you take care of one now?" Mary Constance felt the words like knife wounds, but kept her face impassive. She squeezed the baby against her chest. "I appreciate your concern, ladies, but it is late, and I have to tend to him. Excuse me." She tried to close the door, but Martha put her foot in the jam. "You need to take this child to the sheriff. Leave it in the hands of the authorities. It is not your responsibility. I found him, so he is my responsibility. People will talk, Mrs. Constance. Let them talk." She pushed the door firmly, shutting it in the faces of the 3 neighbors. From the inside, leaning against the worn wooden door, Mary Constance heard the whispers fading away. She knew exactly what they would say. She could already hear the poisonous tongues spreading. The bitter widow picked up an abandoned stray. She's going mad with loneliness. It will be her ruin. But when she looked at the baby sleeping in her arms, none of that mattered. Dawn brought more problems. Mary Constance had no milk. She tried giving sugar water, but the baby spat it out. He cried from hunger, his frail body twisting, and she felt useless. That was when she remembered Bernice, the village midwife, who lived across the square. She wrapped the baby up, placed him in a basket lined with cloths, and went out. The morning sun was already high, and the square of Fairhaven was beginning to wake up. There were only 8 houses around a small church, a general store, and a shed that served as a school and dance hall. Everybody knew everybody, and everybody already knew about the child. The gazes followed Mary Constance like flies after rotting meat. 2 women talking at the door of the general store stopped mid-sentence and stared. A group of men sitting on the church steps whispered among themselves, and one of them spat on the ground with contempt. Even the children playing stopped to watch. Mary Constance held her head high and kept walking. Each step felt like it weighed tons. "Raising other people's kids now, Mrs. Constance?" A man shouted from a window. Laughter followed the comment. "Must be a relative of hers. She was abandoned when she was a girl too." Another voice, female and venomous. Mary Constance quickened her pace. The baby began to cry, as if sensing the hostility in the air. Bernice opened the door before she even knocked. She was a heavy-set black woman, about 60, with wise eyes and calloused hands that had brought half the village's children into the world. "Get in here, girl." She pulled Mary Constance inside and closed the door quickly. "People are acting like vultures on a carcass." "I need help, Bernice." "He's hungry and I don't have." "I know." Bernice took the basket and looked at the baby with the experience of someone who has seen everything. "Strong child, survive the night because the Lord wants him to live." She looked up at Mary Constance. "And you want him to live too, don't you?" "I do." The word came out firm, without hesitation. "Then get ready, because hell is just getting started." Bernice taught Mary Constance how to make cow's milk diluted with water and a little honey, heated to the right temperature, given with a soaked cloth the baby could suck on. She showed her how to hold him, how to burp him, how to change the diapers properly. "You're going to need milk every day. You'll need to go to Colonel Vance's farm to ask for it." "Will he give it to me?" Bernice gave a sad smile. "If he knows it's for an abandoned child, he might charge double." But you have no choice. Mary Constance went back home the long way, avoiding the square. But it was no use. At her door, waiting like buzzards, were Sheriff Miller and Reverend Augustus. "Mrs. Constance." The sheriff took off his hat. He was a pot-bellied man with a thick mustache and small eyes. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About this child you picked up on the road." Reverend Augustus stepped closer. He was young, newly arrived in the village, with that air of moral superiority that irritated Mary Constance. "It is my duty to remind you that abandoning a child is a crime, but taking one without authorization can also bring complications." "Complications?" Mary Constance felt her blood boil. "The complication was letting him die." "No one is saying that." The sheriff raised his hands. "But you need to register the occurrence, and we need to investigate who the mother is." "What for?" "To arrest some poor wretch who must already be suffering?" "To see justice done," the Reverend said solemnly. "A mother who abandons a son must answer for her actions, and the child needs to be placed in a proper facility." "Proper facility?" Mary Constance hugged the basket to her chest. "What facility? The orphanage in the city where children die of dysentery?" Or maybe the charity ward, where they put 20 babies in a room and half don't make it past the first month? The silence that followed was heavy. Mrs. Constance, the Reverend tried again, voice softer. You are a woman alone, of age, without resources. How will you raise a child? The same way everyone creates, one day at a time. But you never... The sheriff stopped himself, realizing too late the cruelty of what he was about to say. Never what? Never had a son who survived? Mary Constance stared at the two men with eyes that burned. Exactly because of that, I know the value of a life. This boy will live, and he will live with me. People will talk, Mrs. Constance, the Reverend insisted. Let them talk. They will say you are not suitable. I am more suitable than whoever threw him on the road. The sheriff and the Reverend exchanged glances. They realized they wouldn't convince her. At least let us register the case. The sheriff sighed. If someone comes looking, you could have legal trouble. Register whatever you want. But this boy stays with me. After they left, Mary Constance went inside and locked the door. She sat in the rocking chair that had belonged to her mother and began to feed the baby with the milk-soaked cloth. The boy sucked eagerly, little eyes closed, tiny fingers clutching her finger. You need a name, she murmured. I can't keep calling you boy. She looked around the simple house. Her eyes landed on an image of Saint Joseph on a shelf, a wedding gift she had received 20 years ago. Saint Joseph, protector of families, adoptive father. Joseph, she said softly. I'll call you Joseph. Joe, to make it easy. The baby seemed to understand. He opened his eyes and looked at her, and Mary Constance swore she saw a smile on that withered little face. That night, for the first time in 15 years, Mary Constance did not sleep alone. She made a makeshift bed with drawers and cloths near her own bed, and every hour she woke up to check if the baby was still breathing. Every time he cried, she got up and soothed him. Every time he moved, she reached out to touch, just to be sure he was real. And while the moon crossed the sky and the world slept, Mary Constance, the bitter widow of Fairhaven, felt for the first time in 15 years that she had a reason to wake up the next day. But what she didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that this baby wasn't just any child. He was the son of someone very powerful, and the truth about his origin was about to turn that small village into a pressure cooker ready to explode. Because on the same early morning, Mary Constance found the baby on the other side of the village, in the big plantation house that dominated all the surrounding lands. Loretta Adelaide, only daughter of Colonel Thaddeus Vance, wept alone in her locked room, sheets stained with blood, body aching from the pain of the birth she had endured alone, hidden from everyone. And she had no idea that her son, the grandson the Colonel would never accept, was alive. In the days that followed, Mary Constance's life turned upside down. She woke before sunrise to tend to Joe. She changed diapers, heated milk, rocked him, sang songs she didn't know she still remembered. Her hands, used only to the heavy labor of the field and the chickens, now learned the delicacy of caring for something so fragile. But every time she left the house, the whole village seemed to be watching. Poor thing, she's gone completely mad, she heard the women whisper at the store. Picked up a kid that isn't even hers. It won't work, the men said at the church door. Children ran after her in the street, chanting, Old lady picked a stray, old lady's gone astray. Mary Constance pressed her lips together and kept going. But every word dug deep like a thorn. If that wasn't enough, milk was expensive. Mr. Vance, owner of the farm and the best cattle in the region, charged double when he found out it was for the abandoned child. And Mary Constance's chickens didn't lay enough eggs to pay. I'll have to plant more, she muttered alone. looking at the small patch of land around her house. Sell vegetables, anything, but planting was hard work, and working meant leaving Joe alone, and that she could not do. It was on an afternoon of unforgiving sun, when Mary Constance was returning from the store with a liter of overpriced milk and a handful of shame for having to ask for credit, that she saw her for the first time. A girl, young, maybe 20, too thin, a beautiful face but marked by deep, dark circles. She wore a simple dress, but of good fabric, and a shawl that hid part of her face. She was standing on the corner, staring fixably at Mary Constance's house. When she realized she had been noticed, the girl turned quickly and began to walk away. "Miss, hey, miss, wait!" Mary Constance called out. But the young woman quickened her pace and disappeared down the dirt road, vanishing between the houses. Mary Constance stood there, heart beating fast. There was something in those eyes, something desperate. Something pained. Could it be? She started to think, but pushed the thought away. That night, Joe cried more than usual. Mary Constance realized he was feverish, his little forehead too hot. She panicked. She didn't know what to do. She soaked cloths in cold water and put them on his forehead. She prayed. She offered milk, but he refused. "Please, my son, please don't leave me, not now." The hours dragged like eternity. Mary Constance didn't sleep a wink, just held the baby against her chest, rocking, praying, begging God and all the saints. When the sun rose, the fever had broken. Joe slept peacefully. Mary Constance leaned her head against the wall and wept with relief and exhaustion. It was at that moment that a knock came at the door. She got up stumbling, eyes red, body aching. She opened the door expecting to find another nosy neighbor, but it was the girl, the same one from yesterday. Up close, Mary Constance could see better. She was truly young, with long black hair tied in a bun, enormous, frightened brown eyes, and delicate hands that trembled as they clutched her shawl. "Mrs. Constance?" The voice was soft, educated, the voice of someone raised well. "Yes? I need to speak with you. About the baby." Mary Constance's heart raced. She tightened her hand on the doorknob. "The baby isn't going anywhere." "No, that's not it." The girl took a step forward, desperate. "Please, I just want to see if he's all right." The two women's eyes met, and in that moment, Mary Constance knew. "It's you," she whispered. "You are the mother." The girl crumbled. She fell to her knees right there, in the doorway, and began to sob with such force that her whole body shook. "I didn't want to. I swear to God I didn't want to. But I had no choice. I had no choice." Mary Constance looked around quickly. It was still early. Few were awake, but soon someone would appear. She couldn't leave the girl there, exposed. "Come inside, quick!" She pulled the young woman in and closed the door. The girl entered stumbling, legs weak, and Mary Constance held her by the arm before she fell. She guided her to the kitchen chair and made her sit. The young woman cried so much she could barely breathe, violent sobs shaking her thin frame. "Hush, child. Calm down." Mary Constance took a glass of water from the clay filter and offered it. "Drink this." The girl drank with trembling hands, spilling half on her dress. When she finally managed to control herself a little, she wiped her face with the back of her hand and looked at Mary Constance with red, swollen eyes. "Is he alive? Please, tell me he's alive." "He is, sleeping in there." Mary Constance pointed to the bedroom. The young woman stood up on impulse, but Mary Constance grabbed her wrist. "Before you see him, I need to know, who are you, and why did you do what you did?" The girl closed her eyes, tears sliding silently down her pale cheeks. My name is Loretta, Loretta Adelaide Vance. The surname fell in the kitchen like a stone in a deep well. Mary Constance felt her blood run cold. Vance, you are Colonel Thaddeus's daughter? Loretta nodded, head low, shoulders curved as if carrying the weight of the world. Good Lord in heaven. Mary Constance released the girl's wrist and took 2 steps back. So that boy is the Colonel's grandson? No one can know. Loretta looked up, desperate. Please, Mrs. Constance, no one can know. My father would kill him. He would kill us both. What do you mean, kill? Loretta took a deep breath, trembling. Her hands gripped the shawl so tight her knuckles turned white. My father is a man of honor. That's what he always says. Honor above all. When my mother died 3 years ago, he swore I would be the most respected daughter in the region, that I would marry someone worthy, someone important. Her voice broke. He does not accept shame. And the child's father? The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Loretta closed her eyes tight, as if trying to push away a painful memory. He doesn't want to know. Said I was lying. That if I told anyone, he'd call me crazy and destroy my reputation. The tears returned. He is married, Mrs. Constance. He is respected, has a family, and I was a fool to believe his promises. Mary Constance felt an old anger rise in her chest. She knew stories like this. She knew dozens of them. Men who played with girls and then abandoned them when the fruit of the game appeared. And when did you find out you were pregnant? I hid it for 6 months, wore loose dresses, stayed locked in my room. My father travels a lot, so it was easy to fool him, but the maids suspected. I saw them whispering. Loretta wiped her face. When my belly got too big, I pretended I was sick, said I had caught a fever, stayed locked in the room for weeks. And the birth, I did it alone, in the middle of the night, bit on a cloth so I wouldn't scream, cut the cord with sewing scissors, cleaned everything up after. Her voice was monotone now, as if telling someone else's story. When he was born and cried, I put my hand over his little mouth, afraid someone would hear. Mary Constance felt her heart squeeze. She imagined that girl alone, in the dark, bleeding, scared, having to stifle her own son's cry. And why did you leave him on the road? Loretta sobbed again, covering her face with her hands. Because I had no choice. My father would find out. If he found out, he would kill the baby. I know he would. He already said it, Mrs. Constance. Said it right in front of me that a daughter of his who dishonored the family name would be better off dead. She looked up, pleading. I thought someone would find him, someone with a good heart, someone who would take care of him. I wrapped him in the best cloth I had. I chose the road because I knew people passed by early. I didn't want him to die. I swear I didn't want it. But you left him there, in the cold, alone. I know, the scream came out shrill. I know. And that will kill me for the rest of my life. But it was him or me, Mrs. Constance. If my father found out, he'd kill us both. At least this way, he had a chance. Mary Constance remained silent. Part of her wanted to yell at the girl, call her a coward, heartless. But another part, the part that knew the hardness of the world, the cruelty of men, the weight of impossible choices, understood. Come, she extended her hand. Come see your son. Loretta stood up trembling and followed Mary Constance to the bedroom. There, on the makeshift bed of drawers and cloths, slept Joe. Small, fragile, but alive. His chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. When Loretta saw him, a sound escaped her throat. Half sob, half moan. She fell to her knees beside the makeshift bed. and reached out a hand, hesitant, as if she didn't have permission to touch. "You can hold him," Mary Constance said softly. Loretta picked up the baby with a reverent delicacy. She held him against her chest and began to cry again. But this time, they were different tears. Tears of relief, of pain, of impossible love. "He's so small, so perfect." She kissed the baby's forehead. "I'm sorry, my son. I'm sorry, sorry, sorry." Mary Constance sat on the bed beside the two and watched. She saw the love in those young eyes. A desperate, broken love, but real. "How did you find me?" she asked quietly. "Everyone is talking. The widow who picked up the abandoned baby. I came yesterday, but I didn't have the courage to knock. This morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know if he was okay." "He is. Spent the night with a fever, but he's better now." Loretta squeezed the baby against herself, fear returning to her eyes. "Fever? He had a fever? It passed. I took care of it. Are you good to him? Please, tell me you are good to him." Mary Constance felt something break inside her chest. She took the girl's hand and squeezed it. "I take care of him, as if he were mine, as if he were the son I lost." Loretta looked at her, really looked for the first time, and saw the truth in those tired eyes. She saw a woman who had also lost, who also suffered, who also understood what it was to love the impossible. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving my son. He is not your son anymore." The words came out hard, but necessary. "If you want me to keep taking care of him, he needs to be mine. Because if anyone finds out he is yours, that he is the Colonel's grandson." I know. Loretta kissed the baby's forehead one more time, memorizing every detail of that little face, and then, with visible effort, placed him back in the bed. Can I come sometimes? Just to see if he's okay? From afar, without anyone knowing?" Mary Constance thought. It was risky. But when she looked at that young girl, so broken, so lost, she couldn't say no. "You can, but you have to be discreet. And if anyone asks, you don't even know me. Understood?" "Understood." Loretta stood for a few more minutes, looking at the sleeping baby, etching that image into her memory. Then she got up, adjusted her shawl, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned. "What did you call him?" "Joseph. Joe, to make it easy." A sad smile crossed Loretta's face. "Joseph. It's a strong name. Beautiful." She hesitated. "Mrs. Constance, you are his mother now. But one day, if he asks, if he wants to know, if one day he asks, I'll tell the truth. That his mother had no choice. That she did what she thought was right. That she loved him enough to let him live." Loretta nodded, tears returning, and went out the door before she fell apart again. Mary Constance stood on the threshold, watching the girl disappear down the empty street. The sun was already high, and soon the village would wake completely. Soon the gossip would return, the judging stares, the malicious comments. But now she had a new weight on her shoulders, a secret that could destroy lives. She closed the door and went back to the room. Joe had woken up and was looking at her with those curious little eyes. "Come here, my son." She picked him up. "Life is getting complicated, but we'll find a way. We always do." The following days were routine of hard but rewarding work. Mary Constance woke with the sun, took care of Joe, worked in the small vegetable garden she started planting, sold eggs at the store, ran back home. Every penny counted. Every liter of milk was a victory. And every 3 or 4 days, always in the early morning while it was still dark, Loretta appeared. She never came inside. She stayed outside the bedroom window, watching Joe sleep. Mary Constance pretended not to see, but left the curtain open on purpose. Sometimes she heard Loretta crying softly on the other side of the window. Sometimes she saw her pray. Once she caught her singing a lullaby, so softly it was almost a whisper. Mary Constance never said anything, just let the girl have those stolen moments with the son she couldn't claim. But the village began to notice. Mrs. Constance has been getting early visitors, Martha commented at the store. I saw a girl leaving there the other day, Gladys added. Must be a relative, Etta speculated. Maybe a cousin, maybe the child's mother. Tongues wagged, gossip multiplied, and Mary Constance knew it was a matter of time before it reached the wrong ears. It was on a market afternoon when Mary Constance was in the square selling her eggs that she heard the conversation. Two men were talking near the church. One of them she recognized as Zach, the foreman of Colonel Vance's farm. The boss is worried about the girl, Zach was saying in a low voice. She hasn't been the same since that fever she had. Stays locked in her room, cries alone. The other day he caught her looking out the window towards here, towards the village. Is she really sick? The other asked. Who knows? Women are complicated. But the boss wants her married soon. Already has about 3 suitors from good families, but she won't have any of them. Mary Constance lowered her head and pretended to organize the eggs, but her heart beat hard. Loretta was suffering, and the colonel was watching her. That night, when Loretta appeared at the window as usual, Mary Constance went out to her. Child, you need to be careful. Your father is suspicious. Loretta was thinner, the dark circles deeper. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I know, he wants me to marry. He's forcing it. But how can I marry, Mrs. Constance? How can I pretend to be a pure maiden when... She didn't finish the sentence. You'll have to pretend for Joe's sake. I can't stop thinking about him. Every night I hear him crying, even knowing he's not there. Every morning I wake up, and for a second I forget. Forget he's not with me anymore. Her voice broke. Did I do the right thing, Mrs. Constance? Constance? Mary Constance held the girl's face between her calloused hands. You did the only thing you could, and you saved his life. That has to count for something. But I abandoned him. What kind of mother does that? The kind that loves her son more than herself. The kind that chooses his life over her own peace. Loretta hugged Mary Constance and cried on her shoulder. They were 2 broken women, each in her own way, united by an impossible love for a small child. After that night, Loretta stopped coming. A week passed, 2. Mary Constance began to worry. She asked discreetly at the store, but no one knew anything. Only that the colonel's daughter was recovering and would soon be presented to suitors. It was Bernice, the midwife, who brought news. I heard the colonel is throwing a ball, 2 weeks from now, to present his daughter to society again. People are coming from the city, even from Nashville. He wants to marry her off to some rich rancher or politician. And the girl? Bernice gave a sad smile. The girl has no voice, never did. She will do what her father commands. Mary Constance felt her heart squeeze. She imagined Loretta being forced to smile, to dance, to accept the advances of men she didn't want. All while the son she loved grew a few miles away, unaware she existed. That night, while rocking Joe to sleep, Mary Constance sang a song her mother used to sing to her when she was a child. Sleep, child, sleep tight. Mother's here watching the night. Angels descending from the blue. Keep your soul and watch over you. Joe closed his little eyes, fingers gripping Mary Constance's finger. He was bigger now, stronger. Starting to gain weight, cheeks fuller, his gaze more alert. You are loved, my son, she whispered, more than you can imagine. by two women who would give their lives for you. It was 3 days before the ball that the disaster happened. Mary Constance was at the store buying kerosene when she saw the commotion. An elegant buggy stopped in front of Bernice's house, and stepping down from it, helped by a tall and imposing man, was Loretta. But it wasn't the sad and thin Loretta Mary Constance knew. It was a Loretta dressed elegantly, hair done up, face made up. And beside her, with a possessive hand on her shoulder, was Colonel Thaddeus Vance. Tall, gray hair, military mustache, eyes hard as stone. He wore a black suit and a felt hat. He radiated power and authority, the kind of man used to being obeyed without question. "Bernice," his voice thundered through the square. "I need you to examine my daughter. She's been having pains. I want to be sure everything is fine before the ball." Mary Constance felt her blood run cold. She turned quickly, trying to leave unnoticed, but in the movement, she bumped into a stack of tin cans that fell with a crash. Everyone looked. The colonel frowned, eyes searching for the source of the noise. His gaze found Mary Constance, swept her up and down with indifference, and then turned back to Bernice. But Loretta had seen. Her eyes met Mary Constance's for a split second, and in that look, there was pure panic. Mary Constance didn't wait. She grabbed her kerosene and hurried out of the store. Her heart beat out of rhythm. Her hands shook so much, she almost dropped the can. She arrived home breathless. Joe was in the makeshift bed, playing with his own feet. When he saw her, he smiled, his first real, conscious smile. "Good Lord," she whispered, picking him up. "Good Lord, what do I do?" Because now she had seen the colonel. She had seen the kind of man he was. And she knew with absolute certainty that if he discovered the truth about Joe, no one, not her, not Loretta, not the baby, would be safe. That night, Mary Constance couldn't sleep. She stayed awake, looking out the window, waiting for Loretta to appear, as she always did. But she didn't come. And when the sun rose, bringing with it a hot wind that smelled of dust and fear, Mary Constance knew something was about to change. Because at the colonel's farm, that same early morning, Loretta lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, hands over her empty belly. And in the hallway outside, Colonel Thaddeus conversed in a low voice with Bernice. "Are you sure?" he asked, voice tense. "Absolute, Colonel. Your daughter had a delivery. Not long ago, maybe 2 months." The silence that followed was terrifying. And then the colonel's voice, cold as ice. "Find out where the child is. Now." The day dawned with a strange silence. Mary Constance woke with a weight on her chest, as if the air had become denser during the night. Joe slept peacefully in his makeshift bed, fingers curled, breathing soft. She ran her hand over his little face, feeling the warmth of his soft skin. "Good morning, my son," she whispered. But the feeling that something was wrong wouldn't leave her. She prepared coffee in the kitchen, the strong smell spreading through the small house. She heated milk for Joe, stirring slowly in the iron pan over the wood stove. The flames crackled, casting dancing shadows on the mud walls. Outside, birds sang as always, but even their song seemed different. Tense, alert. That was when she heard the sound of horses. Mary Constance ran to the window and looked through the torn curtain. Her heart almost stopped. 3 men on horseback were coming down the road. In front, mounted on an imposing black horse, was Colonel Thaddeus. Behind him, Zach, the foreman, and another man she didn't know, big, mean-looking, the kind hired to do dirty work. They were coming straight for her house. No. Mary Constance ran to the bedroom, grabbed Joe, and looked around desperately. Where to hide? The wardrobe? Under the bed? No use. If they wanted to search... The knocking on the door came strong. authoritative. 3 dry blows that made the whole house shake. "Mary Constance, open this door." The colonel's voice was not a request. It was an order. Mary Constance squeezed Joe against her chest. The baby began to cry, sensing her fear. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Hush, my love. Mama is here." The knocks came again, stronger. "I know you're in there. Open this door or I'll break it down." There was no choice. Legs trembling, Mary Constance went to the door and opened it. Colonel Thaddeus dismounted with the agility of someone who, despite being 60, was still strong and agile. He wore black leather boots, riding breeches, a white shirt, and a vest. The felt hat cast a shadow over his face, but his eyes were visible. Hard, cold, dangerous. "Where is the child?" He wasted no time with pleasantries. "What child, Colonel?" Mary Constance tried to keep her voice steady, but it came out trembling. "Don't play me for a fool, woman." He took a step forward, and Mary Constance instinctively recoiled, protecting Joe with her body. "The child you picked up on the road, the abandoned baby. He is my son now. I adopted him." "Adopted?" The colonel gave a humorless laugh. "You adopted nothing. You took a child that isn't yours, without authorization, without paperwork, without anything. That has a name: kidnapping. Kidnapping, I saved his life. He was going to die of cold, and that was very noble of you." His voice dripped with sarcasm. "But now I need that child, and you will hand him over, now." "No." The word came out firm, surprising even Mary Constance herself. The silence that followed was dense. The colonel stared at her, eyes narrowing. Behind him, the 2 men dismounted, hands going instinctively to the weapons at their waists. "Excuse me?" The colonel's voice lowered to a dangerous pitch. "I said no. This boy stays with me." "You don't understand, woman. It's not a request." He took another step, now very close, voice low and threatening. "This child has a history, and I need to resolve that history, my way." Mary Constance felt her blood freeze. The way he said resolve left no doubt about his intentions. "You won't lay a finger on him." "Oh no?" The colonel smiled, but it was a cruel smile. "And who's going to stop me? You?" An old widow, alone, no family, no money. He looked around with disdain. "Living in this miserable shack? You think you have the power to defy me?" "I don't have power, but I have right, and I have love, and that's worth more than all your money and your land." The colonel's hand shot up and grabbed Mary Constance by the arm, squeezing hard. "Give me that child, now." "No." He tried to pull Joe from her arms, but Mary Constance turned, protecting the baby with her body. Joe was crying desperately now, screams echoing through the morning. "Zach, get the child," the colonel ordered. The foreman advanced, but Mary Constance backed into the house. "You'll have to kill me first." "If necessary," the colonel began to say, but was interrupted by a voice. "Father, no!" Everyone turned. Loretta was running down the road, barefoot, dress torn, loose hair flying behind her. She must have jumped out the window, Mary Constance thought. Must have run when she realized where her father was going. "Loretta, get back to the house now," the colonel thundered. "No, not until you leave her alone." Loretta arrived panting, face red, tears streaming down. "Please, Daddy, please. You!" The colonel looked at his daughter, and for the first time, Mary Constance saw something other than hardness in those eyes. She saw anger, yes, but also disappointment, pain. "You shamed me, girl. Dishonored our family name." I know, and I'm sorry. But don't hurt him. He's not to blame for anything. He is living proof of your shame, As long as he exists, he will be a stain on our honor. Then kill me. Loretta opened her arms. Kill me, but let my son live. The whole village was starting to gather. Neighbors came out of their houses, drawn by the shouts. Martha, Gladys, Etta, Sheriff Miller, Reverend Augustus, Bernice. Everyone approached, forming a semicircle around the scene. The colonel looked around, saw the people, and his face hardened even more. He was being exposed, publicly humiliated, and for a man like him, there was nothing worse. "Zach," he said coldly, "get the child. Use force if necessary." The foreman advanced again, but this time Bernice stepped in the path. "You'll have to go over me first, Colonel." "Me too," said Jim, the village blacksmith, a big, strong man. "And me," said Mrs. Ann Appleton, the teacher. One by one, the residents of Fairhaven positioned themselves between the colonel and Mary Constance. People who for weeks had judged her, whispered behind her back, called her crazy. Now they formed a human barrier. The colonel looked at that with incredulity mixed with fury. "You don't know who you're messing with. I can destroy every single one of you. Your lands, your jobs, your lives." "Maybe," said Bernice calmly. "But today, here, on this road, you do not pass." The colonel looked at the determined faces, at his daughter crying, at Mary Constance hugging the baby. For a moment, Mary Constance thought he might really try to use brute force. But then he saw something that made him stop. Reverend Augustus was taking notes in a small notebook. "What are you doing?" the colonel asked. "Documenting, Colonel, everything happening here, every word, every threat." The Reverend looked up. "And tomorrow morning, I send a report to the bishop in the city, telling how you tried to forcibly take a child from the arms of the one who saved him. You wouldn't dare. I dare indeed, because I am a man of God before I am a man of your money." The colonel stood still, fists clenched, jaw locked. Mary Constance could see the war happening inside him, the desire to use brute force against the knowledge that it would destroy him socially. It was Loretta who broke the impasse. She approached her father, knelt in the dirt at his feet, and took his hand. "Please, Daddy, please. I'll do anything. I'll marry whoever you want. I'll go far away if I have to. I'll never see him again, never speak of him. But let him live. Let him have a chance." Her tears wet her father's boots. "You always said you were a man of honor, that honor is doing what is right even when it's hard. Then do the right thing now, Daddy. Let my son live." The colonel looked at his daughter kneeling at his feet, looked at the baby in Mary Constance's arms, looked at the whole village watching, judging, waiting. And then, with a sharp movement, he pulled Loretta up. "Stand up. You kneel to no one. You are the daughter of Thaddeus Vance." He turned to Mary Constance, eyes still hard, but something had changed in them. "You will raise this child, but he is not a Vance. Never was, never will be. He has no right to the name, no right to inheritance, no right to anything. Understood?" Mary Constance nodded, unable to believe what she was hearing. "And you," he turned to Loretta, "never speak of this child again. Never go near him again. Never look at him again. To me and to the world, he does not exist. And if you disobey, I take him from Mary Constance and send him to an orphanage in the city, where you will never see him again." "Yes, sir," Loretta whispered, voice broken. "And you all," he pointed to the village, "forget what you heard here. Forget everything. Whoever talks, whoever spreads this, will regret it. Understood?" Silence was the answer. The colonel mounted his horse, pulled Loretta up with him, she hadn't brought a horse in her desperate run, and galloped off down the road, kicking up a cloud of red dust. When the sound of hooves disappeared, Mary Constance finally breathed. Her legs gave way and she sat on the ground, still holding Joe. People approached. Bernice helped her up. Mrs. Appleton brought water. Jim offered to fix the door that had cracked from the Colonel's blows. "Thank you," Mary Constance said to each one. "Thank you for standing by me." "We were wrong about you," said Martha, ashamed. "We judged without knowing. We gossiped. We made you suffer. But today," Bernice completed, "today we did the right thing." That night, when everything calmed down and Joe finally slept after so much crying and confusion, Mary Constance sat in the rocking chair and let the tears fall. They were tears of relief, of exhaustion, but also of sadness. Because she had saved Joe, yes, but at what cost to Loretta? 3 days later, soft knocks on the door woke her at dawn. It was Loretta, but not the Loretta from before. She was terribly thin, face swollen from crying, eyes empty. She carried a small suitcase. "I came to say goodbye," she said with a lifeless voice. "My father is sending me to Chicago, to an aunt's house. Says it's for me to forget, restart my life far from here. Loretta, I know I can't see him. My father was clear, but I brought something." She opened the suitcase and took out a yellowed envelope. "It's a letter. I wrote everything. Who his father is, what happened, why I did what I did. Everything." She extended the envelope to Mary Constance. "When he grows up, when he's old enough to understand, when he asks, give this to him, please." Mary Constance took the envelope, feeling its weight. Not the weight of the paper, but the weight of the truth contained therein. "And this." Loretta took out a thin gold chain with a small crucifix. "It was my mother's. It's the only valuable thing I have. I want it to be his. So he knows. He knows he came from somewhere. That he had a mother who loved. He will know. I promise he will know." Loretta looked at the house, at the window of the room where Joe slept. Can I see him? One last time?" Mary Constance nodded. They entered the room in silence. Joe slept deeply, little arms open, face peaceful. Loretta knelt beside the makeshift bed and just watched, memorizing every detail. "Grow strong, my son," she whispered. "Grow happy. And forgive your mother for not being brave enough." She kissed the tips of her fingers and touched the baby's forehead. "I love you. I will always love you." She stood up, wiped her tears, and left the room without looking back. At the door, she turned one last time to Mary Constance. "Thank you for saving him, for loving him, for being the mother I didn't have the courage to be. Loretta, you were brave. But Loretta had already gone out the door, disappearing into the darkness of the dawn. Mary Constance stood on the threshold, holding the envelope and the chain, listening to the sound of the buggy taking Loretta away, fading down the road. She went back to the room and put the envelope in a wooden box at the back of the wardrobe. She put the chain around Joe's neck. The crucifix shone softly against the baby's olive skin. "Your mother loves you, my son," she whispered. "She loves you so much, she let you go. And one day, when you grow up, you'll understand that sometimes the greatest love is the one that hurts the most." The following months were of slow healing. The village, ashamed of how they had treated Mary Constance, now embraced her. Women brought little clothes for Joe. Men helped with house repairs. Bernice visited every week, teaching Mary Constance about each stage of the baby's development. Joe grew strong and healthy. At 3 months, he was already smiling at everyone. At 4, he started trying to grab things. At 5, he laughed out loud when Mary Constance made faces. And Mary Constance, the bitter widow who for 15 years lived with a closed heart, blossomed along with him. She smiled again, sang again, felt again that life was worth living. But always, in the box at the bottom of the wardrobe, the letter waited. And on the chain that never left Joe's neck, the crucifix shone, a silent reminder of an impossible love, a terrible sacrifice, a mother who chose her son's life over her own happiness. The truth was stored away, but not forgotten. And one day, Mary Constance knew this truth would need to surface. Because every child deserves to know their story, even if that story hurts, even if that story changes everything. Years passed like water running in the river, slow but constant. Joe grew strong and healthy under Mary Constance's care. At 2, he was already running through the yard, chasing chickens, laughing that loose way only a child knows how to laugh. At 3, he helped water the garden with a small watering can that Jim, the blacksmith, made especially for him. At 4, he started asking questions. "Mama, why don't I have a daddy?" Mary Constance was washing clothes in the tank when the question came. She stopped with hands in the soapy water, heart tightening. Your father couldn't stay, my son, but he existed, and you were loved very much since before you were born." "And why don't I look like you?" She looked at the boy. He really didn't. Joe had light olive skin, straight black hair, almond-shaped brown eyes. Nothing that resembled Mary Constance, with her darker skin marked by the sun, frizzy hair already gray, eyes small and tired. Because you are you, Joe, and I am me, and that doesn't matter. What matters is the love we have for each other. The answer satisfied the boy for now. But Mary Constance knew more questions would come. They always did. The village of Fairhaven prospered slowly. The church got a new bell. The general store turned into a market with 2 rooms. Electricity arrived in 1952, and Mary Constance cried with emotion the day she pulled the string, and a bulb lit up her house for the first time without needing a lamp. Joe was 5 when the first big change happened. Mary Constance was at the market, selling her vegetables, when she felt the dizziness. The world spun, her legs weakened, and she would have fallen if Bernice hadn't caught her. Mary, what is it?" "I don't know." Suddenly everything went dark. Bernice took her home and examined her. Took her pressure, looked at her eyes, felt her belly. Her face grew serious. "You're sick, Mary. You need to see a real doctor. Doctors cost money, and dying costs your life. And what will become of Joe?" The question fell like a stone. Mary Constance looked at the boy playing in the yard, oblivious to everything, and felt fear tighten her throat. With the village's help, everyone contributed a little. Mary Constance went to the city to see a doctor. The diagnosis came 2 weeks later: heart condition. Nothing fatal if treated, but she needed expensive medicine and rest. "You can't do heavy work anymore," the doctor said. "No carrying weights, planting, washing clothes in the tank. You need to rest." But how to rest when she had a child to raise? How not to work when she needed money for medicine and food? It was Bernice who suggested it. "Mary, you need help. A younger person to live here, help with the heavy work, take care of the house while you take care of Joe. I don't have money to pay anyone. But you have a house and food, and there are plenty of girls needing a place to stay." That was how Teresa entered their lives. She was 18, thin as a rail, run away from an arranged marriage in the next county. She arrived in Fairhaven with nothing but the clothes on her back and immense fear in her eyes. Bernice took her in first, But the midwife's house was small. That was when she thought of Mary Constance. She works well, is honest, and just needs a safe place to start over, Bernice explained. Mary Constance looked at the girl trembling in the doorway, saw something familiar in those frightened eyes, saw Loretta, saw herself so many years ago, saw every woman who ever needed a second chance. You can stay. Share the room with me. Take care of the house, the garden, food, and golf. The cleaning. I handle sales and Joe. Agreed? Teresa fell to her knees and kissed Mary Constance's hand. God bless you, Mrs. Constance. I swear I won't let you down. And she didn't. Teresa was hardworking, affectionate with Joe, respectful. In a few weeks, the house ran like a clock. Mary Constance could rest more, take her medicines at the right times, focus on Joe. And Teresa blossomed too. Gained weight, smiled more, lost that constant fear in her eyes. You know, Teresa said one night, while they sewed by the light of the bulb, I never had a real mother. Mine died when I was a baby. But you treat me better than any relative ever did. Mary Constance felt her eyes water. We build family, girl. Doesn't have to be blood to be heart. The years ran like that, in a good and simple routine. Joe started school in the village and proved to be intelligent. Learned to read easily, loved numbers, asked questions that left the teacher Mrs. Appleton pulling her hair out. This boy will go far, she said to Mary Constance. Good head on him. Should study in a better school in the big city. But Mary Constance didn't have resources for that. She did what she could with what she had. Joe was 8 when the letter arrived. It was an October afternoon, heat scorching everything, when the postman, Fairhaven now had a postman, knocked on the door. Mail for you, Mrs. Constance. The envelope was thin, yellowed paper, neat handwriting. The return address, LAV, Chicago. Mary Constance sat in the rocking chair, hands trembling, opened it slowly. The letter said, Mrs. Constance, I don't know if this letter will arrive. I don't know if you still live in the same place. I don't even know if you are still alive, but I have to try. 8 years have passed since I left Fairhaven. 8 years trying to build a new life, trying to forget, but I can't. Every night I dream of him. Every day I wake up and for a second forget he isn't with me. I married 2 years ago. My husband is a good man, knows nothing. We have a daughter now. She is beautiful and I love her. But every time I look at her, I think of him, of the son I abandoned, of the boy I never could know. How is he? Is he well? Healthy? Happy? Have you been good to him? Please, tell me yes. Tell me he grew strong, that he smiles, that he didn't suffer. I don't ask to see him. I know I don't have that right. But I beg, send me a word, one line, just so I know he lives, that he breathes, that he exists. That is all an unworthy mother like me has the right to ask. Eternally grateful, L. Mary Constance read and reread the letter. Tears blurred the words. She looked out the window and saw Joe playing in the yard with a slingshot he made himself, aiming at old cans. The boy was pure life, pure joy. That night, after Joe slept, Mary Constance took paper and pen and wrote, L, your son is well. He is strong, healthy, smart, has your smile and your stubbornness. He is happy, very happy. He doesn't know the truth yet, but when the time comes, he will know. Because every child deserves to know their story. You did what you thought was right, and you saved his life. That counts. That will always count. Live your life. Love your daughter. Be happy. He is well cared for. MC. She sent the letter the next day and cried on the way back home. Years continued to pass. Joe grew handsome and sharp. At 10, he already helped Teresa in the garden. At 12, he started working as a helper in Jim's store on Saturdays to earn some change. At 14, he was the best student in school. Mary Constance aged. Her hair turned completely white. Her body, once strong, now curved under the weight of years and heart disease. She needed medicine every day, but kept going because she had a son to see grow. Teresa also prospered, learned to make sweets she sold at the market, met a good young man, son of a merchant from the city, and they started courting. Life, slowly, was settling for everyone. It was on a June afternoon in 1961, Joe 14 years old, that everything changed. Mary Constance was sitting in the rocking chair when she felt the sharp pain in her chest. Different from other times, more intense, more terrifying. Teresa, she called with a weak voice. Teresa came running, saw the gray face, purple lips, and screamed for help. Bernice arrived in minutes, examined, tried to do something, but she knew. Go get Joe, fast, she told Teresa. The boy arrived running, terrified. Mama, what is it? Mary Constance reached out a trembling hand, and he held it. My son, my dear son, don't talk like that. You're going to get better. You will get better. No, my love, my time has come. She touched his face, memorizing every detail. But I go happy, because I raised you, because I saw you grow, because I loved you every day of these 14 years. Mama, please. Listen, there is a box in the wardrobe, in the back. She breathed with difficulty. Inside there is a letter. It's for you. When I leave, read that letter. You will understand everything. What letter? Understand what? Your story, my son. Where you came from. Who you are. She squeezed his hand. But never forget, you are my son. Always were, always will be. Blood doesn't make family. Love does. Mama, no, don't leave me. Mary Constance smiled. A tired but happy smile. You will be fine, my love. You are strong, brave. You will go far. You will be someone. A tear ran down. Forgive this old woman for not being able to stay. To see. The hand loosened. The breathing stopped. And Mary Constance, the bitter widow who one day found an abandoned baby and gained a reason to live, departed with a smile on her lips and her son's hand in hers. The funeral gathered the whole village. Joe didn't cry. He was in shock, face of stone, eyes empty. He held the coffin with other men, walking to the cemetery on top of the hill. Teresa cried for him. Bernice cried. Even the toughest men had tears in their eyes. Mary Constance was buried next to the husband and son she lost so many years ago. Now the family was reunited again. After everyone left, Joe stood before the wooden cross, alone. The wind blew cold, kicking up red dust. The sun set orange on the horizon. Thank you, Mama, he whispered, for everything. That night, in the house that now seemed too empty, Joe opened the wardrobe. Teresa was in the kitchen, giving him space. He rummaged in the back until he found the wooden box. Inside was a yellowed envelope, a gold chain with a crucifix, the one he had worn forever, and an old photo of a young, beautiful woman with sad eyes. With trembling hands, Joe opened the envelope. Loretta's letter was there. 8 handwritten pages telling everything, every detail, every pain, every impossible choice. Joe read and read again and again. When he finished, it was dawning. His face was wet with tears he hadn't even felt falling. Now he understood. Understood why Mary Constance loved him so much. Understood Loretta's sacrifice, Understood the letter, the crucifix, everything. He took the photo of the girl and looked for a long time. His blood mother, the woman who couldn't raise him, but loved him enough to let him live. "Thank you," he whispered to the photo. "For both. For the two mothers who loved me." The following months were difficult. Teresa and her boyfriend married and invited Joe to live with them. But the young man was good and didn't insist when Joe said he needed to stay in Mary Constance's house for now. He needed to process, understand, decide. At 15, Joe took over the small garden and the chickens. Bernice helped him, as did half the village. But he wanted to do it alone, needed to prove to himself he could. It was one afternoon that he made the decision. "I'm going to the big city," he told Bernice. "I'm going to study, get a better job, move up in life. And the house? It stays here, always. One day I'll come back. And your other mother? Will you look for her?" Joe looked at the chain on his neck, at the crucifix Loretta had sent. "One day, when I am someone, when I can look at her and say, I won, no matter how it started." I won in January 1962, with the small suitcase that had been Teresa's, 15 years just turned, and $20 in his pocket. Joe got on the bus going to St. Louis. Bernice, Teresa, Jim, Mrs. Appleton, and half the village went to say goodbye. "You come back here." Bernice held his face. "Promise you'll come back." "I will, I promise." The bus pulled away, raising dust. Joe looked out the window, seeing Fairhaven get smaller and smaller. The little house on the curve of the road, the small church, the square, everything he knew. But he wasn't afraid. He was determined, because he carried inside him the love of two mothers, the strength of one who raised him, the courage of one who saved him. And that was worth more than any blood inheritance or important name. Years passed. Joe worked hard in St. Louis, took night classes while working days, passed the civil service exam. Started as a clerk, moved up to assistant, then section chief. Studied, grew, prospered. At 22, he met Anna, a simple and good girl, a primary school teacher. They married in a small ceremony with Bernice, Teresa, and a few friends. At 24, Mary was born, named in honor of the mother who raised him. At 26, Loretta was born, named in honor of the mother who gave him life. Joe visited Fairhaven every year, took the family, spent a few days in the house Teresa now looked after for him, put flowers on Mary Constance's grave, told his daughters the story of the grandmother they never met, but who would be eternally loved. It was at 30 that he finally had the courage. He hired a detective. With the full name from the letter, Loretta Adelaide Vance, it was easy to find. She lived in Chicago, married, 2 daughters, apparently happy life. Joe wrote a letter, simple, direct. "Mother, I understood. Understood everything. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for giving me a chance. I am well. I am happy. I have a family. I achieved dreams. I seek nothing. Don't want to cause trouble. Just wanted you to know, your son won. And he carries you in his heart, just as he carries Mrs. Constance. If one day you want to meet me, the door is open. If not, I will understand, but know this, I forgive you. I always forgave you. With love and gratitude, Joseph Constance." The answer came 3 weeks later. Loretta wanted to see him. The meeting was in a park in Chicago, on a Sunday morning of soft sun. Joe went alone, carried in his pocket the old photo, her letter, the crucifix. She was sitting on a bench, older, she was 43 now, but still beautiful. The eyes were the same as in the photo, large, expressive, now full of tears. When she saw him, she stood up slowly, a hand on her chest as if her heart would jump out. "Joseph, it's me." They stood still, looking at each other. Years of pain, guilt, love, forgiveness, everything there between them. It was Loretta who took the first step, walked to him and with trembling hands, touched his face. My son, my son." She collapsed in tears. 30 years of guilt, pain, longing, all coming out at once. Joe held her, let her cry, and cried too. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. There is nothing to forgive. You saved me. Both of you saved me." They sat on the bench and talked. For hours. He told about his happy childhood, about Mary Constance, about everything he achieved. She told about the years of suffering, about her marriage, about how she never forgot. "I don't ask to be part of your life," she said. "I know I don't have that right. But can I know about you? Sometimes? Letters maybe? You can, and when you are ready, if you want. You can meet your granddaughters, Mary and Loretta." She looked at him with wide eyes. You named her after me?" "I did, because you are my mother, just as Mrs. Constance was. I was lucky, I had two." Loretta cried again, but this time they were different tears, of healing, of redemption, of forgiveness received when she expected it no more. Before saying goodbye, she took a small chain from her neck, the same one she gave when he was a baby, but now with a medal of Our Lady, and put it around his neck. "For you, for your daughters, to remember that love doesn't need to be perfect to be real." Joe went back to St. Louis with a light heart. He had closed the circle. He had found peace. Years later, when his daughters grew up and asked the same question, he asked one day, "Daddy, where did I come from?" Joe told the complete story, without lies, without shame, told about the girl who had to make an impossible choice, about the widow who opened her closed heart, about love that transcends blood, about courage that comes from despair, about redemption that takes time but arrives. Your grandfather was a powerful man, rich, influential, he told his daughters. But he had no courage, left his daughter alone, left his grandson to almost die. His name was lost, the farm was sold, the power ended, because power without love does not last. And your mothers? Mary asked. Joe smiled. My mothers were heroines, each in her own way. One gave me life, the other gave me love. Together, they gave me everything. A long time later, when Joe was already old, hair white as cotton, grandkids running through the yard of the house in St. Louis, he returned one last time to Fairhaven. The town had grown, paved streets, cars, electricity in all houses, but the little church was still there, and the cemetery on the hill. He walked up slowly, legs not so steady anymore, stopped before two graves side by side. One said, Mary Constance, Mother of Heart, 1895 to 1961. The other, newer, Loretta Adelaide, Mother of Blood, 1927 to 1999. When Loretta died, Joe brought her to Fairhaven, buried her next to Mary Constance, his two mothers, finally together, resting in the earth that witnessed the miracle of love. Joe knelt between the two graves, placed flowers on each one. Thank you, he whispered, for everything. You taught me that family is built, that love needs no blood, that courage is sometimes letting go, that forgiveness heals, that every life is worth it. The wind blew soft, bringing the smell of earth and wildflowers. And for a moment, Joe felt as if two hands, one calloused and strong, another delicate and soft, touched his shoulders, his mother's, finally at peace. And him too. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss more real and emotional stories from the Heartland. Share with those who need to believe that all love is worth it, even when it hurts. And tell me in the comments, what did you think of the story of Joseph, Mary Constance, and Loretta? Leave your message of tribute to the two mothers who saved a life. And click the next video to meet more stories that will touch your heart. The sun was setting in Fairhaven, painting the sky orange and pink. The shadows lengthened over the graves. The birds sang their farewell song to the day. And there, in that small cemetery of a village that barely appeared on maps, rested two women who proved that the strongest love is not the one that shouts, but the one that sacrifices. Not the one that possesses, but the one that sets free. Not the one that demands, but the one that gives. Joe walked down the hill slowly, heart full. His daughters waited for him in the car, along with the grandkids. 4 generations born from that act of courage on a cold night in 1947. Every life has a beginning. His began on a dark road, in an abandonment that was actually a rescue, in the hands of a widow who thought her heart was dead, but discovered she could still love. And if you ask if it was worth it, all the pain, all the suffering, every tear, just look at the man Joe became. Just look at the family he built. Just look at the legacy of love he left. Yes, it was worth it. Every life counts. Every story deserves to be told. Every mother, of blood or of heart, deserves to be remembered. And every love, however imperfect, however painful it may have been, if it was true, is never wasted. Because love plants seeds, and those seeds grow, cross generations, transform stories, save lives. Just as Mary Constance saved Joe that cold early morning. Just as Loretta saved Joe by letting him go. Just as Joe saved them both by forgiving, by understanding, by loving. In the end, we are not defined by where we are born, by who bore us, by what surname we carry. We are defined by who loves us, by who stays, by who doesn't give up, by who, even without being able to stay, ensures that we live. And that is the most beautiful story of all, the story of love that wins, always.